We're getting there. It takes time. Like they're setting up and they're like, the guys in the room are like, oh no, get your censorship guys ready. We are
Quick, turn on the
live.
gang stalkers. Hurry up.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Sue Greenwald with Awaken Stories. And I'm here today with some new friends of mine, Cassiopeia and Brittany, with Beyond Duality LLC. Did I say it right?
Beyond Duality Inc.
I'm
It's
sorry.
incorporated.
I
That's
knew
all
I was
right.
going to screw it up because I got all like, this has been a weird day for me. I'm all discombobulated because of the time change. It's really messed me up. So sorry. But anyways, I'm really excited to have you back. And we've talked about what topic to do. And I love the topic of what happens to severely traumatized people. I think this is something the watcher, the viewer, doesn't really understand. So anything you could do to explain that would be very welcome.
We want to talk today about trauma causing DID or dissociative identity disorder and its correlation to trafficking, because a lot of people still look at trafficking as just kidnappings off of the street or prostitution or strippers or whatever is like the
Right.
typical mindset of the general public. So we
Right.
want to dive deeper into
Right.
that and explain so people get a broader idea of what is truly happening with trafficking.
Yeah. And I think that is one misconception, even with the Epstein files, okay, that are going out now. And of course, they've been taking them back and all that, trying to get them so that people can't see them. But the problem I have is people are not really understanding this is much, much deeper than just underage sex, okay?
Massively.
Massively.
Much deeper, much more
And
organized.
it's also deeper than just the physical trauma. It's
Right,
psychological trauma
right.
and
Oh, you just locked up. Oh, great.
We froze.
Okay, you just locked
There we
up.
there,
I
now
don't
we're
know
not
what.
frozen. Yeah, you froze too.
Okay. Yep.
Because you
I can.
announced it at the beginning. It's because you talk.
It's
We said
literally
they're
one of
getting
those
ready for the
things.
censorships.
Yep. Yep. So, basically, yeah. So let's go back. I'm hoping that people still pursue with the Epstein information, getting that out there. Like, I see what happened with the Diddy stuff. Like, they're just talking about these parties. They're not talking about what really happened,
They're
right?
still focused on the people that did the traumatizing instead of the people that went through the trauma and what that was
Right.
like for all these children that were there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're not
Mhm.
focused on what's happened to the victims. Like, that you might say, ooh and ah, but you don't understand it. So I'm very grateful for you to tell us what, your perspective is there.
I think a lot of it, like you were talking about with Diddy, and they only talk about the parties, but they don't really talk about the parties. They
Right.
mention there was parties and that heinous things happened, but they don't really talk about it. And I think that had to be, and I hope that's understandable.
Yeah.
I think it's God has his hands on everything. This is all handled. But I think that had to happen because of the sensationalism of it. There were so many people still asleep. It took the wild sensationalism and just the scratch the surface information just to wake them up and get them to pay attention
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they would have talked about all of it right then, describing what happened at those parties, why did they have those parties in the first place, who came up with that, what's the goal? If they would have started talking about all that, I think it would have got lost because of everyone just waking up. And it's like you're saying with the common misperception that trafficking is prostitution or only sex, it's just rape, there's
Mhm.
nothing else. It's the same thing. It's if the world is so asleep, it's the, oh my God, underage sex. They get stopped right there until
Right.
their minds can process it. And
Right.
then they can handle
Yeah.
why the hell that was happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're all at is we're at the why. They're all past the sensational now,
Right. Right.
and that's where we dive deeper and look at what's actually going on.
Yeah. I think we're going to get through this, and in the future, we'll look back and say, wow, it unfolded beautifully for the people to absorb it. I think you're right. If people knew exactly what had happened, they would never have believed it. They
No.
wouldn't have, they wouldn't have believed it. And now we're kind of tiptoeing into these things, and we're seeing it build on each story builds on the previous one, and now people are starting to get more serious.
Oh, that's just like DID. I'm glad you just said that. It's like the story builds on the last one. That's exactly how DID itself works.
Okay. So
It's the
let's
one
talk
thing that,
about that.
yeah, that
How,
right there is the one thing that causes a person with DID to be looked at as non-credible or inconsistent or having variances in their memory. It's that.
Because like I talked about last time when we were on here, um, she would have alters come forward and they would give me one little piece of a story,
right, right,
one part of a story, and then a year or so later, 6 months, whenever that alter came back around, it would tell me the same story again, but with more details or more information. So it's not that it was a false story or a lie. It
yeah,
was just that alter felt comfortable and safe enough to tell you more of what actually happened to them and their experience.
yeah. And you
Yeah.
said you had hundreds of altars?
Yes.
Hundreds, okay. All right. Now, so can you explain to the audience what an altar is? And then we'll talk about a little bit about how it's created.
You want to tell them what DID is? You want me to do it?
Mm. Well, DID is caused by severe trauma in early childhood, in the adolescent years. I can start with that part.
Yep. It's caused on purpose through extreme and repeated trauma. Very specific things are required to cause a fracture, to cause dissociative identity disorder, to make an alter. The child has to not recognize anything in their environment visually, and they have to be at the height of terror, and they have to go past thinking you're going to die. See, to think you might die indicates that the human mind still is holding on to the hope you might not. You have to go, a person had to go past that into, it's going to happen, and then you outweighed it. You can't understand why you didn't. So it's a total loss of all orientation of any kind, and the mind fractures. And an altar is created that way. They let's see, I don't want to get too complicated, but that is how an altar is made. They will take a child into extreme trauma where they don't recognize anything. It pushes their consciousness
Yeah,
out of their
I
mind.
was just gonna say it fractures their consciousness, so it fractures off a certain region of your brain. And so then when that alter, like, so that alter would be like this area of your brain's cut off,
Right.
so it's in like a full circle, like what that part of your brain is that alter.
Hmm.
So that alter only has access to like that part of the brain or those memories for those
Right.
emotions.
And it is state dependent memory. So on purpose, very, very intentionally, they take a child into the emotion that they want them to be in. So if they take them into euphoric wonder and excitement, they do that. Offering them, we're going to go ride ponies. And you're really excited that you want to go ride ponies. So you flood with that emotion. And then as soon as you walk into the arena thinking you're going to see ponies, there are monsters. And so it switches instantly from that very targeted emotion of wonder into the terror, and it'll cause a fracture all the way around the part of the brain responsible for wonder. So they'll take the child into the emotion they want to fracture off or box off. And all the ID is state dependent memory. So then it'll require that emotion and then whatever keywords and codes they put in to bring it back later.
And
Those are
sometimes
alters.
it could be like any sensory type of thing. That's why they do sensory deprivation and stuff like that. That's
Right.
going into the MK Ultra part of why they use DAD.
Each alter is just essentially You as a child, at whatever age the trauma was that took place, when I was fractured when I was 4, created a 4-year-old alter. They're frozen in time emotionally, not mentally or intelligence, just emotionally. The person is frozen in time emotionally at the age that the altar
Right.
was created.
Right.
And they will be limited whenever that is triggered and they're in the 4-year-old part. All the electricity in their brain is in that region of their brain that it was in when they were 4. And that is what causes them to only have access
Right.
to that particular emotion that they were in when it was created and the memories they had access to then. So if I were triggered into my 4-year-old part, I would only have access to my memories that I knew when I was 4 and nothing else.
And from that perspective of
Yeah.
the 4-year-old.
Emotionally,
Right.
Right.
from the
Right.
emotional perspective of that
Right.
4-year-old,
Right.
I could still maybe have conversation that doesn't sound like I'm 4,
Right.
but I'd have the emotional maturity and capacity of a 4-year-old,
Mhm.
and I would probably still drive everything visually and emotionally.
Yeah. Now, can you tell us what the reason would be for creating these altars? Like, why would your handlers, in this case, care to plan all of this and execute the plan to create these altars?
Few reasons. If they took the mind, so I'll just use myself. They took me. They wanted to fracture one part, now creating 2 consciousness to me. Alters are generally not aware of each other, and they wanted to fracture off a part that was only in a specific emotion, a specific emotional state. And then while I was in that particular emotional state and that altar was being built, they said specific names, numbers, and code words repeatedly, sometimes for hours, or they would use music to do that. And that would provide them the opportunity later to recall, even decades later, to recall that specific emotion and that specific altar. And they also did it so they could use that altar. Um, if you could think of it, you're so dissociated when an altar is created, you're having an out of body experience. When it would happen to me, uh, I could watch myself from across the room, and I watched all the things happen to me from outside of my body. You're having a complete out of body experience when they're creating an altar. They did that also so that they could make that altar do whatever they wanted them to do. Go do a job, go do a task, perform a ritual, experiment on them, go get information, etc. And then when they would then switch the person out of that altar, bring them back so they're not dissociated anymore, the person would have no memory of anything that took place because the creation of the altar itself and the act of how to have the out of body experience and dissociation when it happens creates amnesia.
Yep. So
Right.
then there's an amnesic wall between the altars, which is why most altars aren't
Aware of each other.
communicating with each other or aware of each other until you go through the healing process and integrate and help them become aware of each other and be able to speak and share memories.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they did it very specifically for those 2 reasons. One was to make a person do things against their will without the ability to remember what they
Right.
did.
Right.
And the other was for lifetime later recall. They could bring that altar back to make them do it again or
Right.
do something similar.
Right.
It goes to show how easily it would be to exploit somebody with DID and use them for trafficking purposes. Because then if they don't have somebody that's a constant in their life that is with them and paying attention to what is going on, that person with DID is not going to remember and they're not going to know.
Right.
So they can be easily manipulated and forced to do things against their will
Right.
and not remember it later and then not be able to tell anyone.
The not telling anyone. That's the thing too. That is a big key reason they did it, was so then they could torture these children or make them do these jobs, make them do these tasks, get the information. Pardon me. And then this kid's going home at the end of the day and they can't tell mom or dad or grandma or the teacher, they can't tell anybody because they don't remember. And even if they did, because a lot of us did, even if they did remember, um, they're not going to be able to tell it clear because of the programming put in while they were under dissociation.
Right.
The repetitive words and things like they did not use the right wording for things. When they would have me dissociated, they didn't use the standard words to describe things.
Like, for example, we all know that a baby uses a pacifier. Okay, well, my children never called it a pacifier, they called it a bob. So they had a different word for what
Right.
that item was, as an example.
Right. Okay.
But unless you were the parents or the grandparents, this kid's walking around saying, "Where's my Bob?"
Yeah.
You might think it's a person
You
she's
wouldn't have
talking
any idea.
about, not a
Yeah.
pacifier. Like,
Yeah.
And that's what they did with alters. You know,
Right.
they program in a language that they understand and they know what they're talking about.
Right.
And you know what they're talking about. But if you try to tell somebody else, it doesn't make sense.
Right. It doesn't it doesn't come out clear or in a logical sequence.
I don't understand
does
the
what
question.
come up?
If you were trying to tell someone your story, it's garbled up because it's not in a logical linear sequence. Like most of us could remember X, Y, Z, step by step, where it might be jumping around for someone that's had DID.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I couldn't, I've never tried, and I don't think I would have the capability to tell my life story from birth till now in any sort of timeline order that would be correct
Right.
or understandable. It would take me so much work. All
I mean,
of
I can
Brittany's,
help.
all of Brittany's help
Over here,
and my
like,
husband and
Yeah.
but it just because it doesn't work that way, it's state dependent memory.
Mhm.
So as the emotions and the vibe changes in the room, so do my alters and access to memories. So, you've been in a room with people when you're talking, I'm sure even doing these shows where the energy is great, the vibe is up, and then all of a sudden something shifts and it's just a weird vibe. And there's like a quiet, dull moment, it's weird. Okay. Well, to other people, those are just weird moments. To me, that would switch me into a different alter. And then whatever in the hell we were talking about 2 seconds before, I still can follow what we're talking about, but I'm not in that same alter. So I may or may not be able to answer any more questions. It'll throw it off where then I couldn't, I'd say, I don't know.
So it sounds like they've purposely created these altars. Okay,
Yes.
they plan this, they know how to do it quickly and
Yes.
easily for
They
them.
have been experimenting on the limits of our minds and our consciousness for a long time. It's
Yeah.
just been very hidden until now because all these files are coming out and the
Yeah.
geneticists and everything else. It gets very science, and then the further into it you go, it gets very sci-fi seeming.
Oh God, yeah. And yes, they did DID, used to be called multiple personality disorder, but
Right.
they made it on purpose. It was made for what we're talking about. And there are hundreds of documents. It's on the CIA's documents. It's in the files that were just released. There's a lot of information out there on it.
Right.
They select babies for their capability to dissociate. So this is a natural born ability. This is not, it's a gift. The ability for the mind to dissociate and separate its consciousness is an ability or a gift. And these people pick babies. They make them in IVF labs just to have the ability to dissociate. And then they take those babies and fracture their mind to create DID because they had the ability in the first place. So, yeah, it's really intentional. If you looked at the whole brain, and pretended that was the mind, if you could section that off in 20 sections, you'd have 20 alters. each altar is capable of a different psychic or energy ability.
Mhm.
If one is capable of telepathy, there's another one capable of telekinesis. There's one that can
Remote view.
remote view. There's
Right.
another one that can hear spirit. There's another, yeah, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Right.
They do it intentionally for that too, so they can section off and control the gifts.
Now, what's the end game with this, would you say? What is the why would
Total
they
domination and control.
all right. So basically,
That was their end game. It's
yeah,
not going to work. We know
yeah,
that, but
yeah.
that was their goal, was hidden, secret, total domination and control, to use regular looking people of no name and no status
Oh, you locked up.
globally.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah. So basically, so
to be
you're out.
storage units for their information.
That's what I
So
was
they
just gonna
could
say.
store information. They recall these children back and ask who was there, what were they doing, tell me all the conversations that took place in the
Mhm.
room. Then they don't need militaries, they don't need espionage, and they don't need technology, and they don't need surveillance. They have it in human biofield people.
So
The
basically, you could go to a meeting and hover around. Nobody really pays attention to a child when, the adults are talking, right? And you would listen
Exactly.
to the conversation, interact, just have a normal time, and then you could go back and repeat exactly what happened.
Yes.
Report that information, what they were talking about, etc.
Yes. Forced to thousands
Yeah,
of times.
yeah,
And you can
yeah,
find documentation about the FBI, the CIA, the presidents themselves using psychic advisors. And I mean, I'm sure they have other names for them, but we'll just stick with
We'll say that.
psychic
yeah,
advisors for now.
yeah.
There is documentation of them using people that have these abilities and training people for
Right.
remote viewing and all of these things, which
Right.
also leads into the MK Ultra and why they use children, because they did actually sign in to the CIA the ability to use children during wartime after World War II to gain the information, because it's countries against countries, and they
Right,
use the children to do it.
right, right. Now,
And you've seen it with other
Yeah.
countries. They send children out, children in war,
Yeah.
because it pulls at everyone's hearts. They've always used the children.
It keeps doing it.
we've locked up again. Can you repeat your last sentence or two? We've seen
Um,
children.
You've seen children be sent out with bombs strapped onto them in other countries during
Yeah,
war times. Like,
yeah.
they've always used the children because it pulls at your heartstrings and it
Yes, of
makes
course.
everyone want to help and save the child, but then
Yeah,
it puts them in danger.
yeah.
Also, every country globally, regardless of their laws for immigration or refugee or asylum, nobody up until now has refused children. They're starving, they're homeless, they're hurting, they're vulnerable, and they're alone. It starts with orphan trains and
Right.
moves forward through everything, including Minnesota being absolutely busting at the seams with the Somalian population
Mhm.
and more immigration, immigration, integration. And that ties all into the let's build a wall,
Yeah.
all the
And
garbage going on.
then there's all the people that are completely stateless. And I don't think people hear about that enough either. Stateless people don't have a country that claims them. They don't have citizenship anywhere.
So no jurisdiction.
Right.
And but with the children, if they call up some prime minister, some leader of some country and say, we've got a bus load of 100 kids, a train load, a plane load. Well, last 2 years ago, it was planes flying them everywhere.
Mhm.
We have a bunch of children in need. Who in the hell's going to turn them away?
That's true. That's
You'd
true.
look like the biggest ass hat on the planet. They're not
Right.
going to turn them away. They're innocent babies and children, or so they think. So they did this with the children and created the DID and put in the MK Ultra so they could send in loads of innocent looking children to be placed everywhere,
Children soldiers.
child soldiers,
Right,
so they
right.
could activate sleeper cell groups later to do messed up shit.
Which is what we're looking at right now with Iran.
And everywhere.
Mhm.
Everywhere. They're everywhere. This is not, and
They're in
again,
every major city. Yeah.
this is not a USA problem. This is not just our country. Although
No,
we're prominent because, we think we got to get in everybody else's business. This is a global problem, global,
Mhm.
and it needs to
They
be
use the
addressed.
United States more as their experimental and testing grounds,
Yep,
though, because look at how much less everyone in America knows about what's going on compared to every other country.
right,
correct.
right,
And there are more people with DID in the United States than any other country in the world. There are more um, people with DID that are permanent children, and that one's unique. It means they were fractured and alters were made so many times it took up their entire area of their brain. There's no more room to make any more fractures or alters. And so every single part of them is a child
Because there's no part of their brain that wasn't
that wasn't
fractured.
fractured as a child.
so emotionally they're a child and they can't function in society is my assumption.
We froze again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We must be
We
talking
might
about good stuff.
might be a little shorter of a show today. That's all right.
Hey,
Yeah, yeah. Well, whenever we talk about important stuff, they try to censor us. They do
Hmm.
this. It's quite annoying.
that's how I see it every time. The more they glitch us, the more
Yeah,
excited I get. We're on something. So
Mhm.
yeah,
that's good.
yeah, yeah. Well,
You
they
know,
don't
and
want people to realize that this is real and it's out there. So tell us
no,
the last couple of stats you just like since we've glitched, back up a little bit and restate what you just were saying if you could.
there are more people with DID in the United
Mhm.
States than any other country in the world. And there are more people with DID that are permanent children. So they were fractured and an altar was
Right.
created so many times when they were children that there was no more room to fracture.
Yeah, yeah.
Their entire mind was fractured as a minor child. So they could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. It wouldn't make any difference. They don't have any part of their mind that developed past a child. They're a permanent child. There are more permanent children in the United States than anywhere in the world as well.
Because people that have had, like, say, they have 5 alters, there's still parts of their brain that could develop past a child state of
Right,
emotion.
right,
And
Yeah.
so they're not permanent children, but they still have DAD.
right, right.
And
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
what she's saying is correct. In order to not be a permanent child, there just has to be a region of the brain responsible for emotion of some sort that they didn't fuck with. They weren't able to fracture through that emotion. Then that standing emotion matures and grows and expands and becomes like the control room for all of the fractures in the
Right,
mind,
right,
making it a lot easier to integrate and heal. You can integrate all the broken parts into, or the, sectioned off parts into essentially the one that was not broken. But with no sections left, there's nothing to integrate
right,
into.
right,
Right. I've
right.
only read and don't quote me on it, there's not enough documents. I've only read and used Fiona's help about there being 4 permanent kids in the world known so far. 3 are in the United States.
Okay.
And if you
Well,
have not heard of, or everyone watching hasn't heard of, Fiona Barnett, she is in Australia. She
She's a
has done
survivor.
multiple books and she helps with like the
Academics.
academics.
She has her PhD. She's a survivor. She has DID, but
Works on the
yeah,
academic part of DID, like when they changed it from multiple personality disorder to
right.
dissociative identity disorder. She does like that type of thing, like helping it change academically and getting more information out academically for everybody to learn about. That's what she
And
does.
what's her name again?
Fiona Barnett.
Okay.
She does have her own website. It is harder to find here.
Yeah, because she's in Australia and they ban her.
I can send you a link though to her website,
Okay.
Sue, and then you
Yeah.
can put it in the comment or
Yeah,
the
that would be
description
great.
below.
That would be great.
She's an expert in the field, but yeah, there's 3 in the United States and only 1 in a different country. Known.
Yeah. We're seeing video now of people in every country coming forward, whistleblowers coming forward, talking about their experiences, the
Seeing
fractures
video
of
of
their
stuff.
mind. Oh,
Can you,
golly, you were smiling and I
seeing
just kept
videos of
going.
we're
Yeah.
seeing videos of what?
Uh, from every country of people that have had this abuse, the mind fractures, the different alters, they're
Yeah.
coming forward talking about that. But
Yep.
a lot of people, like I said earlier, we don't understand it clearly. So what you're doing today is really helpful to help us understand it more. Do you know? Yeah. Is there any way to heal from this once you have a fracture in your mind like this, different personality? Is there any way to heal it?
Yes, it's hard. It's not easy. It's a process and it takes a very long time. We're not talking a few months or a few years. Brittany and I have been working for over 10 years now, and I'm not done. Nowhere near. So it takes a long time. It requires the recognition of every single
Right.
alter, and alters don't recognize each other. People with DID lose time because of the switching between alters.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, if I'm in alter number 1 and I have this conversation with you, then alter number 1 will forever remember this conversation with you. And then if I switch into alter number 2, and I go about the rest of my day, then alter number 2 will not have a sensation or a memory of talking to you. And that is what causes the loss of time sensation. Um, we've worked the hardest on that, on not losing time. To heal, you have to recognize every alter, which is to recognize their behaviors, their emotions, what happened to them. Um,
It's also why a lot of people with DID don't get diagnosed until like their early 30s, I think is like
Normal.
normal average. Because with DID and losing time, you don't recognize you yourself have DID unless somebody else
Yeah.
is
Right.
pointing out different behaviors and things to you to make you aware of it, which is what we've worked on. I
Right.
talked about that a little
Yeah.
last time too,
Yeah.
how she would call or text me and she would be like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Which is
Right.
why it's important for somebody with DID to have a constant, whether it's virtual, you can call them or text them all the time. Like they know what's going on in your life, where
Right.
you're supposed to be, what you're doing that day, so you can keep track and help them
Right.
or remember things for them if they forget when they're in a different altar, which
Right.
is why we started recording so much so that I could have the transcripts and summaries or play it back so she could hear herself and her different altars
Right.
and get to know them.
yeah.
That was one of my questions that I haven't asked yet is really, for healing and accountability, right? You need someone like you have each other, right? To support
Yes.
you understand each other. Brittany's there to notice your personality changes or like when you were called to for in one example to go to New Orleans, like it was like a call you couldn't resist. She
Yes.
was there to support you. And I think
Yes.
that makes a big difference. In the healing process, wouldn't you agree? Like someone that can point these things out that knows you really well and knows that's not typical or whatever. And you can
It
support
would be
each other.
critical.
Yeah,
It would be critical because if she hadn't been there, yeah, it would be critical for healing. Because without it, I would have still just fell under those programs and commands over
yeah,
and over again
yeah,
without awareness that it was happening.
yeah,
That's that was so critical for even starting to become aware that you do something you didn't realize you did. That is
right,
hard for the mind to wrap around by itself,
right,
you know. You don't have a memory going to the store, but your family is telling you that you went to the store, and they're showing you a receipt, and they've got a photo that you went to the store at, but you don't have a memory.
But
Yeah, it'd be
those are the
critical.
things that help a person when you're trying to point out to them having a photo or an
Right.
audio or a text message, something that shows them that it was real. Like, hey, you actually were there. This is what
Yeah.
did happen, so that they don't think that you're trying to manipulate them or mess with their mind further,
Yeah.
because that is what is done with the exploitation of DID.
I'm so glad you brought that up because you're talking about healing
Yeah.
and how it's
Mhm.
critical to have somebody. It is. But that somebody, it would be life or death to know that that somebody is who they said they are, that they're a good person, that they walk with God, and that they're not there to program you again. Because with a person with DID, you have to trust the other person when they say, no, bitch, you went to the store, and that you have to
Yeah.
at least trust them enough to listen so
Yeah.
that they can show you that you did. If that was a bad person, they would just put in false information. They wouldn't tell me that I went to the store. They'd tell me that I went to the car wash. I met up with this guy. I did this thing. They could make things up,
And
Right.
that can create a lot of more illusions,
more illusions and
false memories.
more
Yeah.
confusion.
Yeah.
And for the person with DID, until you're healed, they would have no discernment between, is the store story correct or the car wash?
Yeah.
They don't know at all.
Yeah. I would see too how throughout your life it would be hard to trust anyone
It is.
because you wouldn't know if they had your best interest at heart or their own interest or whatever, right?
I,
Well, and the amount of time you have to spend around somebody with DID to get to know
Yeah.
them, and like be aware of what state are they in, which altar, how are you going to help that altar, because each one is
Yeah.
different, so how you help each one's going to be different. You're dealing with multiple people
Yeah.
all at
Yeah.
one time.
So you both seem so knowledgeable. Obviously, this is your life, you're living it. Do you have you worked in psychology or anything before? Like, how did you learn what you know?
we learned everything we know about DID through lived, dirty, sweaty experience
Yeah.
and with working with thousands of people while we are out there. I went to school for 3.5 years, went to the University of North Dakota, and I got degrees in psychology and forensic neuro. And then I became a mental health practitioner, trauma therapist for kids. And I did that for, I think, about 2 years.
Mhm.
Well, maybe like four total,
Oh, so you're kind of important all of it.
about 4 years total. And before we were baited forward 4 years ago, and then I
Okay.
couldn't work anymore.
Okay.
Yep. And I helped her through college, so I just learned on the fly that way a little
Yeah.
bit. But
Yeah.
before that, I had worked with vulnerable adults, and so I had learned what they had done in like psychiatric hospitals and mental hospitals and stuff like
Right.
that beforehand,
Right.
and the experimentation and the treatment of people back then when they first started having all the psychiatric holds and stuff like that.
All right.
So that when we started talking and coming forward, all of my information from what I knew in the past.
You
Are we on frozen?
you froze up again. I'm sorry. All right.
I stopped. I was like, I know we're frozen.
Yeah.
Um, so when I was working with vulnerable adults, I learned.
Oh.
There we are.
It is
They
so
don't want me
annoying.
talking about
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Okay. Vulnerable adults, you learned.
The abuse and all the experiments and stuff that they were doing
Oh yeah.
on them and
Yeah.
the treatment.
Yeah.
And that, like now, as we've learned more, I was able to look back on all those experiences. And I used to work at like kids' job, and I used to work in a group home with children, underage girls. And so just all those experiences and all the things that those girls went through and the vulnerable adults and everything I know now, it just kind of all came together. Like
Right.
they were already doing all this before. It was just hidden, and people's perception of
Right.
it was different. Like they were shown that it was normal.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
But the treatment of people with a disability or anything has been so cruel the whole time. Like those are the people that are experimented on the most.
Well, and we had a couple of DID kids when we worked at Port, and you worked closer with them than I did. I did not tell anyone in my world. I mean, she knew, my family knew, my friends knew, but
We
I didn't.
worked at the group home together.
Yes. I didn't tell employers or strangers or things that I had DID. I kept that very hidden. I was self-conscious about it and didn't think anyone would look at me as capable of doing anything. So we just didn't talk about it. But you could go to college for psychology, you can work in group homes, and we did all that. And I have a degree in those things. There was like two freaking paragraphs in all of my years at the university about dissociative identity disorder. So you learned nothing about it or how to treat it, how to help. There was so little information, and it still read like it was half bullshit and they couldn't tell. So, I mean,
Yeah.
degrees in it, more the neuro stuff that I learned was helpful and life
Mhm.
experience. But there's not enough information about DID, how to treat it. There's not even evidence-based pretty much anything that
Uh,
helps.
I would assume that's purposely done, right? They don't want
Thank
us to
you.
know, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's considered one of the worst mental illnesses known because it has the least listed treatments
Right.
or helps. It's the least understood and considered non-curable, yet half the academic world or more, still forever until last year, still looked at it as questionable on whether or not it even existed.
Right.
So that is exactly why they did all of that.
Right.
If you make a condition invisible, well, you sure aren't going to treat it.
Right.
And they're not going to dump any money research into treating dissociative identity disorder and people with 300 or 400 children walking around inside their consciousness. Why? They would rather spend $6 billion studying dolphin language and whether or not, if you give psychedelics to dolphins, does it make them more likely to be able to understand English?
The CIA did that.
That's real. That was just 2 years ago. So,
I wonder
And
what the
if you
answer is.
hadn't, if you have not yet, please go look up the article of this man, Ricky Holloway in Florida, who just got to go live with dolphins underwater and build a city. Like there's actual articles. Florida Okaloosa police have put it out there. It is public. You should go look at that. It's interesting.
Say his name again.
Ricky Holloway.
Okay.
that was the guy from a news article.
Yeah, that's the Florida
Yeah.
Okay.
Ricky and the dolphins.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it is on purpose.
Yeah.
That's how they hide this stuff. They don't hide it. They just give it words and names that make it distasteful. Oh,
And,
if they call it crazy, no one will look.
and they've renamed it. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, there we go.
So they
Yeah,
renamed it. So even if you did know a little bit about it, you're not even picking up that it's called something different now.
no.
right.
All
And
right.
dissociative identity disorder,
Yeah.
that multiple personality disorder at least made sense to the average person. It kind of says it in the name. Oh,
Yeah.
this person has multiple personalities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They took away the description.
Yeah. They do that with food ingredients too. The public will catch on that there's something toxic being placed in their food. And then once we say, "Oh, don't consume that," they switch the name so no one
Why do
knows
you
what it
think they
is.
get away with things? Because the law is the same too. They do it
Sorry.
with pros.
I'm sorry. It's
Every
so
time.
annoying. Yeah.
That is so
Every
good.
time. I brought up the law, okay?
Yeah. Yep.
They
Yep.
do it with the law too, though. They
Yeah.
change the language because trafficking wasn't a thing. It wasn't even illegal until the early 2000s. Before that, it was slavery. People just don't often recognize the similarities there either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
That's true. That's true.
and under the language thing now, even the trafficking language now, MK Ultra or mind control or coercion or
Mhm.
forcing a person to go 2,000 miles away and walk around a presidential campaign for 4 days. That's not illegal and is not considered trafficking.
Right.
Even though you were just forced to go 2,000 miles away, that damn sure
Right.
is interstate trafficking,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it
But
is, it's
they
in the
word
wording.
it legally so that they can't be caught.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you look at who's writing the laws and look at who's all in those files,
Yep.
they match, don't they?
Yep, yep, they totally
And
do. Well, that's
all of
why
that,
getting this out is so important. We need to expose all the little loopholes, everything. The public needs to know. People need to know that this is much deeper, right? It's
yes,
very organized. It's been out for thousands of years.
Yeah.
They know
Because
what they're
then
doing.
eventually we'll get to why were they playing with your consciousness?
Well,
What is
that,
so big about your consciousness? Why were they playing with that? See,
yeah,
and then that's where people like they don't get that far. They're like, oh, it's really terrible. They've been doing this to children. But we still have to get to why. Why is this going on? Why is it such a big thing? What is the biggest picture going on our entire planet right now?
narrative creation.
yeah, yeah.
That is the
Mhm.
biggest thing on our planet right now. Narrative creation.
Literally, probably every story has been changed throughout our history, our known and even
Yeah.
unknown history, right? The stories have changed, the facts have changed, the reasons have changed. Uh, Public opinion is greatly swayed, which changes laws, it changes how their budgets are used, what they're doing, what the public allows without revolt, blah, 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 right?
And what percentage of the public is actually paying attention to all the laws and bills and everything being passed?
Yeah,
How many people are actually reading through all the fine print and all the documents and everything? So they sneak a lot of stuff in there because people are not paying attention
they absolutely
because
do.
they don't think it's important to their life every day.
Yeah,
When it is, it affects them
yeah,
heavily and they're still not paying attention to it
yeah,
because of the amount of brainwashing and they didn't want you to look at that.
right?
Now here's where I'm going to tell you something good. All that DID we just talked about and how they created that on purpose. Hold on to that for a minute. And why, right? They did that so you'd be dissociated, you'd be having an out of body experience and lack of memory, things like that. Hold on to that. And then all the words, when those kids were being dissociated and fractured, they used strange language. And now bring that forward into the language of the law. Now it's written to well benefit the elite.
Mhm.
And you asked, what is it all? What is the biggest thing? And it's narrative creation. Um, those all go together. Those all go together.
Yeah.
And it's also backwards here. They use these children with VID to create their narratives. They plant the seeds in the altar and then they'll wait 10 years. If they say this needs to be the prime minister of the UK in 10 years. Well, then that kid is raped by that person who is not the prime minister yet, but will be in 10 years. And through that, the child stores that person's original DNA in their body. And then 10 years later, they recall the altar of that child they used 10 years before to walk around, and that man's DNA is exuded in that child's biofield. And all of the people around that child are now influenced towards that prime minister.
Mm-mm. That is quite a plan. And we know that that happens. Sorry, we keep locking up. It's the worst. We know that this happens. We know that the plans are very well developed. They've been doing this for so long. We're just finding out about it.
And the organized crime in it, the organized part of it, the language is so specific and purposeful and very mapped out in the children when they fracture them and program them with MK Ultra. The language is still organized and mapped out and planned when they're writing the laws, all these bills, all the this and that. The language that they script for every newscaster is all the same. They all just layer on top of each other.
Right. Right.
So war on documents and contracts.
Frequency warfare.
Everyone on your television has signed a contract. Everyone that has signed to a record label for your music has signed a contract. All your media is owned by the Jews. It's all scripted.
Right.
Your soccer team, your football team, your whatever, your sports, they're all scripted too. They all have contracts.
Right. Right. It's
The
all a
narrative
deviant
creation.
plan. Yeah.
Mhm.
And really, it seems like almost nothing is organic anymore, organically done. It's all this
Right.
plan, and we're supposed to just watch the headlines or whatever they want us to do, go about our lives and comply, right?
All of those headlines and big keywords that they use are all programming words meant to elicit a very specific emotion inside every person. And then if there's 3 million people across the globe that they've triggered into feeling that same intentional emotion,
Right.
those people link together biomagnetically and it can change things on the planet.
Right.
They siphon that for energy use and more.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. So
Yeah.
basically, they're creating a vibration of what they want, where we want the
Yes,
highest
it's
vibration.
frequency warfare. And
Frequency.
if they
Yeah.
people are contagious, especially children. Children are contagious because no one will turn them away, number one. Number two, they're fascinating to watch and they're amazing. So people are contagious. If they can infect one person with the vibration of fear, oh my God, the sky is falling, that person's going to go spread it around. They get what they want. It's frequency
Right.
warfare.
Right.
They do it with the children with DID the most because they can switch them around easily to any emotion they want to go spread in a certain area. If they need the town of Nashville to all of a sudden,
You locked up again. If we need
yep,
the town of Nashville to all of a
to,
sudden,
to all of a sudden be more patriotic because they want the voting rate in Nashville to go up,
yeah,
they'll send in a child with DID to go be patriotic through the town of Nashville and spread that vibration all over the place. Specific, of course. They want them to vote for, Joe Blow. So they're going to send a kid with DID into Nashville to go talk about Joe Blow through just up in their feels emotion. And just like that, the town of Nashville's whole vibration, unbeknownst to them, and they don't know why. But damn, they feel patriotic. And all of a sudden, they fucking love Joe Blow.
right, right. This is huge what you're talking about, and this is big. So what we want to do is create the highest vibration here on earth of love, light, peace, and healing. So let's intend that from this point forward. Done, done,
Yes,
done.
that's what we've been doing for 4 years. We refuse to let go of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just refuse.
but knowing what you just said, it makes sense. It's like putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
And it's only the children with DID, with alters, that can go to Nashville. And because of that programming, it's called on them. It's only the children with DID that can go to Nashville and go stomping around the town, shaking hands with 36 people
Right.
and spread that vibration because it was that frequency through words, emotions, and lights that was programmed into that altar to do that damn job in Nashville 25 years ago.
Right. Mhm. Fascinating.
When in 1987, I met the Pope in San Antonio and I was taken to Ruby Falls. On that day, the plans for way too many people were set in place for the next 65 years on one day in 1987. That was, it had been pushing 40 fucking years since that day when I got recalled and Brittany had to go with me.
Mhm.
And we were walked through the Tennessee and Carolina mountains on a political campaign to go shake hands with very specific people and say out of my mouth things, sentences, and topics that were put into me at 1 o'clock in the morning in 1987. And almost 40 years later, they started falling out of my face in the mountains in Tennessee. And then the exact people from 1987 that they intended to move into power in 2025 and 2024 and 2026 did.
So it's a long-term plan.
Yes. Yes.
And you as a participant feel hopeless or helpless, I guess is a better word. You can't change it. You have to do it.
When it kicks on me, if it's an unhealed thing, there were 88 main projects or programs, 88 main ones, programs. Okay. And if you could think of each program, if you could just, this is not correct, but it's easier to talk about. If you could think of each program like a video game, and so Mario Brothers video game is different than like, shit, I can't, like a race car video game.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I couldn't think of any, but you know, so the theme is different. The programs are that way too. There were 88 main programs. Can I have a drink? Like I can't even swallow. I'm sorry. I have a brain tumor and seizures, and the medication I take gives you an incredibly dry everything. Thank you. There were 88 mains, and let's say one was for remote viewing, and another would have been for telepathy. Inside each one of those 88 programs were over, I think the smallest one had 50 sub projects, and the biggest one had a little over 300. So there were 88 main programs, each having anywhere between 50 and 300 projects inside of them. Each one of those is run by a series of names and numbers only. That's it. And they very much, when they call one, if I didn't heal that particular one, then you're correct. I don't have a choice. I will scream in my own head. I'm screaming. And I'm very aware that I don't want to do whatever thing. But there is no option. My body would move without my control completely. My mouth has moved without my control. It's nasty. It's vile. It's painful. It's physically painful. When we were breaking a few of them, I had to physically just make sure I didn't move. That doesn't seem like something you'd have to fight, but I had to restrain myself because I knew it would kick and wanted me to do anything. It is physically painful. I have bled out of my ears, my eyes, my nose, my skin.
Yeah.
Like just
like out of a
sweat
pore.
out,
Yeah.
blood out of my skin. I've had a heart attack just a few months ago. I've had 2 strokes. I've collapsed in public many times. these programs are not just psychological, they're embedded so deeply and under and out. And consciousness has yeeted itself across the room, and the body still remains. Those codes then, and the words for recall, and the words that make the person do the thing, so we call them MK codes. The MK codes are put in the child while the child's out. They're all across the room, and then the codes are put into the body, and then later the consciousness is brought back into the body. So those codes are stored in the flesh, not the mind or the spirit. So even when you become like for me, I have it. Even when I became aware, should I have a program, because she would help me see it. Um, this is one I've got to break. It was in my cells, in my body, not in my mind. My mind would become aware of the problem. I would learn the coding, the specific words and numbers that broke me. And my mind knew how to undo that, but my body would still move because of how they do it on purpose. They remove the child's consciousness first, then stand over you. And I can only tell you once. I know an example. I've a lot of them, but I had 4 people stand around me. I was laying on the floor and could not get up, and they stood around me in a very close circle, chanting over and over and over for 4 or 5 hours the exact words and numbers, nothing else. And they just kept saying them for just over, and they wouldn't stop. I watched this from across the room. I watched it happen to my body. Uh, and then later, I came back into my body. That coding is then placed, it's embedded in your cells. So, yeah, it's hard to fight it because your mind, even when you're healing, your mind says, no, 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 I'm not going. And your ass is still walking. And so it's extra. It's extra.
Wow.
Yep. And then
Wow.
when she got to a point where she would be able to like verbally fight it, like she'd say things like, I don't want to be here, but then it would be like contradictory
Mhm.
back and forth. And so then it was always kind of hard, like, do we stay? Do we get like it just made it difficult for a little while. And then trying to do everything you can to leave the situation because it's obvious that she wants to leave the situation. She keeps saying she wants to leave, but keeps going back to like we're staying. So then you just try to do everything you can to leave that kind of situation, but then you're still unable to until
To
I
the
would get
program.
lucky
Yeah.
enough to find a way out or like help her. Like we would have to work together to get out of those type of situations because of how strong that hold was.
They
Like
are strong.
even if I said, okay, let's leave, like we're leaving, then she would have like fighting struggle of no, we have to stay, like, just like the back and forth
Right.
struggle.
Right.
So, and like if I was too forceful or got aggressive, then it would make her scared of me. And then she wouldn't trust me. Then it would try to divide us and separate us, trying to make it where she would then still be stuck in that situation alone,
Yep.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
So they would try to use us against each other as well. And I have natural DID, so I have the natural ability to dissociate. So it would dissociate me as well in those situations, making it more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Because then we're both dissociated.
Wow. I feel like,
And
go ahead.
the only way to help somebody out of a dissociation is to join them in it,
Yes.
follow them into it and through it, and help them
Walk them back.
come back, which is what I've spent a lot of our years together doing with her.
And they built it that way, that is the only way you can help someone who is that far dissociated. They made it that way, that you'd have to go in with them. You have to find them in the dissociation. They made it that way so no one could help them. They didn't think anyone would ever come along with that kind of, I don't know what that is. That's God. That's just what that is. is God sent a world full of people that are so much stronger, and they just said, fuck it. And they went in. And that's what Brittany does. She has had to follow me into dissociations. When they trigger me in the past, I'm dissociating fast and I'll go through layers. Uh, when they took us to the mountains, when I referenced that earlier, we had to go on that political campaign. We went through about 25 altars in about 2 hours from the time we got the phone call and it kicked on until we were driving. And so it's just switch, 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 which means a change in topic, a change in conversation, each one having a different perspective about what we have to go to the mountain. Some of us are okay. Some of us are scared to go to the mountain. Some of us don't want to leave. Some of us don't know where it is. And it just goes and goes and goes. It's intense. And to follow a person through the dissociation, you have to be able to understand what they're saying, follow each conversation change, each topic change. Like when oh yeah, no, I'm following you. And you have to mentally and psychologically follow them through the conversations, which are going to be changing at rapid speed.
And you cannot let your own mind wander off and get lost in different thoughts. You have to stay present with them or you'll mess yourself up.
Or the person trying will get, you get lost. My friends have died. They've died trying to follow each other into a dissociation. One followed the other in, lost track about 4 or 5 switches in, because it's hard not to. I'll have to call you one of these days when it's happening, just so you can hear it yourself.
Yeah.
And you would then forever never wonder what in the hell we're talking about. No, it sounds unique and it sounds like that every time for anyone that has DID and MK when they get triggered. Would sound the same. Might be different topics, but not going to sound the same. And my friend who followed someone in about 4 or 5 switches in, like had a realization of her own because of the stuff the person with DID was talking about. They'll talk about classified information. They're going to talk about out there stuff. They're going to go galactic. We're going into the Council of 300. Like they're going to just start talking about things that have been hidden for eons. And about 4 or 5 topic switches in, my friend went off sideways on her own. Oh, I figured something out. And she got mentally lost in her own mind. A few days later, was put in a psych ward and she still lives there.
Now,
Yes. So it's not, these aren't games. These are mind wars. Yeah, Brittany's had to ask me things like, what year are we in? Because I can be triggered back to 1987. And then I'm going to respond to everything in the world around me like it's 1987. And if she can't keep up and understand what I'm talking about, she would get lost. And then we're going to get each other more lost.
I'm grateful you have each other.
Me too. She has saved my life hundreds of times.
Yeah.
It's just the part of the work that a lot of people don't notice. They don't ask me questions, what it's like or how we do any of it, though we try to talk about it. But it's just like the parts that we haven't been able to talk about very much publicly.
It feels like this is really important because the whistleblowers have come forward. They have, the multiple alters and all that, multiple personalities, but they don't actually talk about it.
Right.
This is really important. I feel like we need to talk about this even more. I don't know if you're willing to talk about the Tennessee mountain experience or you want to think about that, but that might be helpful. Doesn't have to be right this second, but I feel like we need to talk about this even more and maybe we need to collect more questions from the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to, if it's okay, and it'll be my first time trying it, I want to walk you through how easy it is. That's the only way I know how to put it. How easy it is for these people, the powers that be, to take a child, break them, put in MK programming, and return them back to their family without most people ever noticing. So if I could tell you something that happened, it would show that.
Okay.
And I don't usually share because uh, it, it's MK and I don't want to hurt people and I don't want to spread fear. So when I was in the third grade, I was in the brownies. My mom put me in the brownies at school, like young Girl Scouts. So Cub Scouts, the brownies are the Girl Scout version. And I lived in California. And that day I woke up, I got dressed in my brownie uniform, and my mom and her coworker uh, dropped me off at school wearing my brownie uniform, my badges. I was told I was going on a field trip with the brownies that day to a zoo. So I went to school and um, we went to our classroom. And a few minutes later, it was time for me and the other girl in the class that was in the brownies brownie field trip time. So we left and went to a different room, meet up with the brownie troop. And we were all put on a bus and transported to a military base. We did not go to the zoo. When we got to the military base, I will skip some details just because I'm showing you a route that it didn't look like your regular military base. It only looked like office buildings. And we went underneath it in an elevator and then on a subway, like under the ground. And I was put in a room that was all white. It was a tiny room and it was completely white. I was told take all my clothes off, put on a gown and these socks that went up to my butt. So I was wearing all white and I could only see the skin on my arms and hands. Otherwise, everything was white. Then I was put in this room that was all white. I was not hurt or anything at all at this point. Scared, sure, but not hurt. And I was put in this room. The room was completely white. Nothing else. Not even a speck of color on an edge or anything. And it had one chair in the center bolted to the floor, kind of like a dentist chair, but more plush, a little bit more plush, but otherwise like a dentist chair where it supports your whole body. And I was not tied to this chair or anything. I was just put in the room, sit on the chair. A lady came in wearing all yellow. Why, I don't know. Hat, pants, shirt, and gloves, all yellow, and handed me a little cup of something to drink. Tasted like orange tang or something. I drank it. She left. She came back a few minutes later and gave me something to drink, a little cup again. The same flavor, but this time the liquid was a little thicker. And I drank it. And then she came back a third time, same little cup. And this time it was so thick, same flavor, so thick it was like gel or like jelly, and I drank it. As the liquid got thicker in the cups, my body got heavy. So heavy by the time I drank the third one, I could not physically move. I could not lift my arms or my legs or my head. They wouldn't move. They felt like they weighed hundreds of pounds and I could not move them. So no one had to tie me to anything. I could not move. So I was just chilling in a chair, very drugged, and but not mentally, just my body. The white wall, everything went black. They shut the lights off. No one came back in the room. I was just in there by myself. They turned all the lights off and it went black. Then the walls all around me, including the ceiling and the floor, turned on. They were screens. I did not know that. They just looked like white walls, but then they were screens, different screens. And there was a different scene on every screen. The one in front of me was nature, like you were in the woods, and everything was humongous and it moved towards me like 3D. Nothing came out of the screens. I've had to look at this a lot of times as an adult with these eyes, but every screen played something different. The nature one made it look like I was moving through it, like I was somehow going through the forest. The ones on the right and the left and the back were all different. They were all different themes. Well, all the screens started out with different scenes and no people or animals, just places. And like I said, they're all moving, like you're moving through each one. If you look this way, they would turn my chair. I could not move. So whatever screen I was facing is what it looked like. You're moving through the damn thing. Well, it started out with all the screens going at a normal speed. Like, so you're going through the forest at a normal speed. And I could see the screens out the sides of my eyes on both sides, but I couldn't even turn my head. Um, Started out at a normal speed. Then they sped it up and the scenes started going faster. And then people and creatures and monsters and nightmares started coming into all of the screens. And then the floor screen over and over and over. The floor would look like it pixelated and collapsed. So just scene after scene of different floors falling away or catching fire. Uh, and it was all terrifying on every screen. They started speeding it up faster and faster, very fast until it was overwhelming. I threw up all over myself a lot. After hours, they put different speed on every screen. So some were going really fast and some in slow mo. And then at the end, they all went still, like a still photo. And then they shut off, and it was just a white room. Again, two men came in and carried me out. I don't remember changing my clothes back to my brownie uniform at all. I remember them letting me rinse my mouth with water, and I was put back on a bus with my same friend, and we were taken to another building and put in a room, this time together, her and me, with these gentlemen who spent maybe 2 hours, but I'm going to be not accurate. It felt like a very long time, but I think it was only maybe an hour or two. Rapid fire questions about everything I saw on those screens. Very detailed things. One of the scenes on the screen was an ocean, like you were under the water, and it was peaceful at first. There was just fish, and it was pretty. And then a gigantic shark came onto the screen, and it took me through. It was coming at me, and opened its mouth, and then I went into its mouth, and on the screen I could see the inside of the shark and its intestines. And then it went to piles of the inside of the shark's body and piles of human pieces, legs and arms, decaying. It was nightmarish. And the question they asked about that were, how many teeth did the shark have on the top row of his mouth? So they would ask extremely detailed questions about these scenes of things that you would not ever have been paying attention to. You're terrified you're about to get eaten by a shark. Nobody is counting the number of teeth. But that's what they would ask, details like that. And I would get hit and shocked if I didn't answer fast enough or was incorrect. So you have to answer. And they spent about an hour or two asking over and over questions of what we saw and experienced over and over. And then we were put in front of a little TV screen together, me and my friend, and given a shot and shown a film strip of zoo animals and taken back to school, where our teacher then asked us how your trip to the zoo was, and you answer that they had a gorilla playing with a kitten and it was so cute. And I was gone only the course of one school day. The testing that day is what that was. I had been through many times. That was not my first time or my last. Those tests were to test your endurance, mental and psychological endurance under extreme situations, and test memory recall during terror states and heightened cortisol. If your fight or flight is on, they say most people have worse memory recall. Like it's not great because you're in shock or your fight or flight is on. So you tend to only remember like the big details of a car accident or something when it's supposed to come on. These people were testing the mind's ability to recall tons of details under those conditions, and they wanted to know the maximum number of days or weeks. How do I put this? When I was in that chair, they the screens are putting information into your eyes and ears because you can see all of the scenes and they all look life size, and you can hear all the sounds that go with all those scenes. And every one of them went really fast, but everyone would go from daytime till nighttime, till back to daytime, back to nighttime on the screens. The sun would come up and we were outside in the forest during the day, and then it would gradually get dark and then the sun come up. They put in my head that day 6 weeks worth of information, 6 weeks of visual and audio information in a few hours, and then tested me to see how accurate I could be on recalling 6 weeks worth of information, details, because they wanted to know the maximum capacity of sending a human being, a child. How long can they send this child to Pakistan to go live amongst the people and be able to bring them back and with accuracy tell them what they
Right.
want?
Right.
And
Wow.
that's how easy it was.
Yeah.
My brother went to the same school as me. He was older than me, but he went to the same school as me. My brother and I had talked about this 20 years ago, and he had no memory of me going anywhere. He saw me walk into the school that day wearing my brownie uniform and get back to the house that afternoon wearing my brownie uniform.
Mhm. Wow. Wow.
And most parents, sadly, are busy. They work 24/7. These parents are overworked and they think their children are safe when they drop them off at school. And they think Brownies or Girl Scouts or whatever is a good organization. So they don't look. And when I told my mother that I got ate by a shark, she, of course, told me, don't tell stories. Liars go to hell. And so then you don't talk about that again at all. And it doesn't matter that you carry the memory forever. And I would still tell anyone today, I sat in a chair and I experienced 6 weeks in that chair. I may have only sat there for a few hours, but I lived 6 weeks in that chair at rapid speed. And that was just one day. People think it's too complicated to take these children or do this to them. It can be done to them like that in one day during 7 hours while they're at Bobier Elementary School and nobody think a damn thing.
Okay. I don't even know what to say. It sounds so horrible. Horrible and scary.
I absolutely wasn't trying to be horrible or scary.
No,
I
no,
just,
no.
I
We need
just,
to know this. We don't
yeah,
know.
I've been thinking about it since yesterday and I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it and just explain. I wanted to try it with one thing that is not gore, if that makes sense,
Yes.
because 99% of all the rest of everything is gore. So I just
Right.
wanted to be able to show you so people understand
Right.
this can happen and it's not, that's how it's hidden. That right there is how it's hidden. So you see, it's not hidden.
Which really brings me back to the point is we need to know this, understand this, and prevent this now. Now. We can't wait any longer.
Yeah. It took Brittany years. And without it, that part of me that lived through that room would have never healed because that part of me would have said, we got ate by a shark.
Yeah.
We would have told her that a bulldozer drove over us because that was on a screen. We would have told her that the floor fell away and we landed on spikes. No one would have listened. She had to listen long enough and know that we were telling her something. She's not stupid, she's brilliant. So she knew we didn't land on spikes. She knew there was something, but she knew that's how I was experiencing it or
Right.
remembering it.
Right.
And she listened long enough and asked questions long enough to understand, oh, you saw this stuff on a screen? Like coming at you? Like virtual reality? Oh my God, no wonder your mind absolutely still remembers it as you actually did it. That makes sense. And then we were able to move past like the sensationalism of it and see what that was. Oh my God. They were experimenting. It took a long time.
Yeah.
That's the joys of DID and why they made it intentionally, and why they do what they do so that if anyone survives and attempts to speak, this shit ain't for the weak. They figure the world is either gonna ignore them or they would have to put together the weirdest puzzle and map they've ever seen in order to understand what we're trying to tell them happened and
You,
is happening.
you explained it beautifully.
Thank you.
You
Like
really
that, if
did.
that made sense, I'm so proud of myself.
No, you explained it beautifully. I think probably most of our minds are blown. Mine is blown. And it helps us to understand, like I said, there's a lot of you've got a lot of courage to come forward and tell us this. I understand it's not easy, but you're helping us understand. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
you are
I
welcome.
I'd like to, if I could, maybe we sign off today now, and the viewers send me their questions. If we could maybe present them to you, I could even collect them and give them to you in advance. So we could do like a part two of this. Would
Yeah.
Yeah,
that be
that would be wonderful.
acceptable? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for those of you that are watching, either email me or you can put the comments in YouTube. Once this video is out there, put the comments there. I'll collect them and then we'll talk about this more in depth if that's possible.
Yeah.
I feel
Sounds
like we're
good.
at a good breaking point for today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'll get overwhelmed and freak out that I just said all that.
You've done amazing. You've done amazing. So I want to thank you again for having the courage to come forward, for telling us your stories, for helping us to understand. And then for the viewers that are watching this to understand, share the stories and the concepts, understand that this is real and it's much deeper than we're even talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And helping others to know.
Yes.
All right. Well, I thank you so much for everything that you're telling us, for helping us to understand, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
saving
you.
my life again 100 times.
Always. Thank you so much.